So, as expected when it comes to Sid Colson and anyone in the WNBA, when it comes to all of them, once you joined the Indiana Fever, the old WNBA fans that loved you, they adored you, they called you the face of the league. But once you joined the Indiana Fever, that is over. That's over.
Fans are losing it because once again, the WNBA has stumbled straight into the chaos they built themselves. Sydney Coulson, one of the league's most outspoken and entertaining stars, has gone from being hyped as a face of the W to suddenly dragged and basically cancelled, all for saying out loud what everyone else has quietly thought about the refs. And honestly, you couldn't script this drama better if you tried. The second that Indiana Fever jersey hits your shoulders, the rules of engagement instantly flip. It doesn't matter who you were before, how funny you were, how loved you were, or even if the league itself once celebrated you. The moment you're lined up beside Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston, or Lexi Hull, you become public enemy number one to the very fans who once screamed your name. That's exactly where Sydney Coulson finds herself now. So is the league really trying to silence voices like Sydney Coulson? Or are these insecure fans just overreacting because they can't handle the truth? Drop your thoughts below. So here's the setup. She fires off a post blasting the refs for blatantly tilting games, pointing out that Kelsey Mitchell takes constant hard fouls that would never be ignored if it was a different star. And she wasn't wrong. If you've watched this season, Kels has been hammered on drives more times than we can even count. But somehow, whistles just vanish in those moments. Coulson even joked that maybe she should rope in her sister to file legal action because the assaults had gotten absurd. That's her in a nutshell. Sarcastic, blunt, a little wild. And it's exactly why fans loved her when she was an ace.
And then all the responses people responding, I shit you not, responding saying that Kelsey Mitchell, and this is why I think this is a hilarious thing, where it's like they immediately call her MAGA. Because she said a referee was trying to give the game to the Sparks.
But now the reaction was pure meltdown. Suddenly, the same people who once clipped her interviews and spread her jokes are calling her mega Karen, toxic, and claiming she's ruining the league over what? Saying refs were crooked. And honestly, when has that not been the conversation in basketball for the last 50 years? The wildest part is it's not even new behavior for her. She's been calling out refs and delivering that same sarcastic punch for years. But the double standard couldn't be clearer. When she was clowning on other teams or cracking jokes about non-Fever moments, it was hilarious, shareable, and earned her the title of funniest player in the WNBA. Now, the second she's in a Fever jersey and spotlighting the same awful officiating that Fever fans themselves have been screaming about all season, she's branded the villain. It's not that her delivery changed, it's that her target did. And it proves exactly what Fever fans already knew. The hate has never been about personality. It's been about the jersey. This was never really about Sydney Coulson. It's about shutting down anyone brave enough to expose the corruption and the ridiculous bias against Indiana.
Now, mind you, that shot clock was not moving at all when she first grabbed that ball. The shot clock was not moving, fam. Let me go back. Let's go back. I'm going to get a quick play. I'm trying to dodge the copyright. But pay attention to the shot clock simultaneously while hitting De'Erica Hamby's hand right here. Watch this. That shot clock did not move at all, fam. That shot clock, fam, the shot clock didn't move not one bit. Yeah, I used the double negative. Didn't move not one bit.
And let's be clear, the refs have been brutal. This isn't about one missed call or some 50-50th judgment. We talking repeated no calls while players are literally shoved out of the lane, arms locked around their necks, bodies crashing to the floor. We're talking about the same officials who'll hand out techs over attitude, yet swallow the whistle when Caitlin Clark gets hacked on a three, or when Aaliyah Boston is flat out mugged beneath the rim.
Kelsey Mitchell and Star don't belong in the same sentence. She's third in the league in scoring on the sixth best team in the league. So yes, Kelsey Mitchell is a star player. She's third in the league in scoring on the sixth ranked team in the league. I'm sorry, if that's not a star, I have no idea what a star is.
The outrage when Colson finally said the quiet part out loud tells you everything. The league doesn't want players tearing back the curtain. They don't want fans reminded that outcomes might not be just about talent or execution. What they want is the illusion of fairness, not the messy truth. And Colson bulldozed straight through that illusion, cracking jokes about refs trying to gift the game to the Sparks, and it set off alarms everywhere. The instant reaction from certain WNBA diehards was to drag her character. It wasn't enough to disagree or debate the point. No, they went straight to the political playbook. Call her mega, call her problematic, paint her a traitor to the cause. You'd think she was out here endorsing building a wall, not simply complaining about whistles in a basketball game. That's how absurd this has become. And the hypocrisy? It's wild. You've got announcers openly roasting Angel Reese for missing layups and grabbing rebounds, and that just gets brushed off as playful. But Sydney Colson fires off one sarcastic tweet about refs rigging games, and instantly she's enemy number one. The double standard couldn't be louder.
Would have been so much pro. Would have been so pro Sid Colson when she was on the Aces, and then they just turned. Then you've got this here, waking up hating like this. Just because.
Now here's where it gets even funnier. People rush to say Kelsey Mitchell doesn't belong in any star conversation, desperate to discredit the entire point Colson was making. Never mind that Mitchell ranks third in league scoring on the sixth best team. If that's not a star, then what on earth is? But the hate for Fever players runs so deep that the only take people will allow is the one that diminishes them. Colson simply saying her teammate deserves star treatment was enough to set off the mob. And notice, it's always Fever players. You never see this hostility aimed at middling players on other squads. You don't see fans flipping favorites into villains just for defending teammates. Only when Indiana is involved does logic fly out the window. And it's not just outsiders. Even players once loved, Sophie Cunningham is the perfect case, get the same treatment. People despised her until she joined the Fever, then every negative narrative doubled overnight. Like clockwork. Colson's simply the latest target. And because she lives online, unfiltered, she's become the lightning rod. That's what makes it all so wild. Fans aren't canceling her because she changed. They are canceling her for staying the same person she's always been, just in a different jersey. And that's the part that drives Fever supporters insane. It proves the bias is real, and it proves the league's supposed growth is fragile, built more on narratives than reality. So now fans are furious. Fever supporters see the hypocrisy. They see their players treated differently, fouled harder, dismissed faster. And when one of their own dares to speak up, loud and unapologetic, the league and its so-called supporters act like it's the end of the world. Sydney Colson hasn't changed. The only thing that changed is she called out the system while wearing Indiana colors. And for that, they want her gone. The fallout from Sydney Colson's comments has blown way past basketball. We're at the point where fans are dragging her personality, her character, her entire career, just because she dared to use the word assault when talking about how Kelsey Mitchell gets hacked on a nightly basis. And here's the kicker, it's the exact same word she's used for years. She said it as an ace. She dropped it in post-game jokes. She slipped it into interviews where she clowned her own teammates. Back then it was funny. Back then it was classic Sid. But now, suddenly, it's offensive, problematic, even cancel-worthy. And that proves it's never been about the word at all. It's about the fact it's now tied to a Fever jersey. It's the uniform, not the vocabulary, that set people off. Just look at the timeline. Before Indiana, Sydney Colson was everybody's favorite personality, the funniest player in the WNBA, they said. Her interviews went viral. Her jokes trended on Twitter. Media outlets ate it up because it was rare to see a player that unfiltered. Fast forward to today. She makes the same kind of remark and the reaction flips on its head. Now she's a problem. She's toxic. She's mega. Really? That's the label we're throwing around because someone dared to say referees were favoring the Sparks. That's how unserious this whole discourse has become. If calling out obvious corruption makes you a political extremist, then half the NBA, NFL, and MLB players from the last 30 years would be tagged as mega too. It's lazy, and it's meant to silence. And here's where the league looks terrible. Because when players like Colson speak up, the league does nothing to defend them. Nothing. They just leave them twisting in the wind while fans rip them apart. And you know what that tells every player? Shut up. Don't speak. Don't question the officials. Just smile, run up and down the floor, and take the abuse. That's the message being sent. And that's why Fever fans are absolutely livid, because they see it happening. They've seen it all season with Caitlin Clark. They've seen it with Aaliyah Boston. They've seen it with Lexi Hull. And now they are watching it unfold with Sydney Coulson, too. The pattern is undeniable. The second a player puts on that Indiana jersey, the microscope tightens and the treatment shifts. Sophie Cunningham? Hated Sydney Coulson. Hated. Caitlin Clark, public enemy number one. Aaliyah Boston, constantly questioned. Even Lexi Hull, who simply goes out, plays, and says nothing, somehow becomes a target. The Fever jersey feels like a curse in the eyes of WNBA media and rival fans. And the Coulson situation is perfect proof. She hasn't done anything different from what she's always done. The only change is she's doing it as a Fever god. And for that, she's painted as the league's new villain. What makes it even more absurd is the substance of what she said. Was she wrong? Not at all. Kelsey Mitchell gets hacked. Everyone's seen it. Game after game, drive after drive, she's getting hammered and barely getting half the whistles she deserves. And when Sydney Coulson joked about calling her sister to file charges, it wasn't just humor, it was highlighting the absurdity of how physical teams are allowed to be with Fever players compared to anyone else. You don't need to love Indiana to admit the whistle disparity is obvious. But instead of facing that truth, people went straight to killing the messenger. And that's where the hypocrisy burns the most. The same fans who once hyped Coulson's sarcasm are now pearl-clutching over tone and word choice. Suddenly sarcasm is dangerous. Suddenly jokes are problematic. Suddenly the same Sydney Coulson who once had media panels cracking up is called unprofessional. Really? Or is it simply that she said it about the wrong team in defense of the wrong teammate and called out the wrong refs? If she'd made the exact same comment while wearing an Aces jersey, people would still be laughing. The proof is right there in the reactions. Even funnier, critics are now dragging Kelsey Mitchell just to go after Coulson. She's not a star? She doesn't belong in the MVP conversation? Excuse me, Mitchell is literally third in league scoring on a playoff contending team. If that's not a star, then what the hell is? If she were in a Liberty jersey or a Lynx jersey, those same voices would be lobbying for her as an all-star starter. But because it's Indiana, the narrative flips. And that's why Fever fans are defensive, because they can see the way narratives bend depending on which team you suit up for. It's bias dressed up as analysis. And don't think the players don't notice. They see how fast the love flips to hate the second they step into Indiana colors. Sophie Cunningham used to be a villain everywhere in the league. Sure, but once she put on the Fever jersey, the hate doubled. Suddenly every flop was treated like a crime of the century. Suddenly every foul she drew was called a conspiracy. Now, Sydney Coulson's jokes, the very thing that once made her a fan favorite, are suddenly the reason to cancel her. At this point, it feels predictable. The Fever jersey comes with a built-in target, and Coulson is just the latest player to wear it. But here's the part that really exposes the fragility of the so-called WNBA fan base. They can't handle being joked about. Think about it. These are the same people who laughed when Angel Reese mocked her critics, who clapped when players roasted each other online, who cheered when Coulson cracked jokes about her own teammates back in the day. But now, when she cracks a joke about officiating, they want her fined, suspended, maybe worse. They can dish it out, but they can't take it. And that's the hallmark of insecurity, not fandom. If you can't handle a player joking about obvious foul calls, maybe you shouldn't be in the comment section at all. And yes, it goes beyond fans. The league itself is part of the problem. The way officiating has been handled this entire season has been questionable from the start. Missed calls, bizarre technicals, inconsistent whistles. It's been a mess. And instead of addressing it, the league hides behind silence. No accountability. No transparency. Just a cycle of bad calls and angry fans. So when someone like Colson finally says out loud what everyone's been thinking, she becomes the scapegoat for frustration that should have been aimed at the refs and the commissioner's office. Because it's easier to cancel one player than to fix a broken system. The sad part is this could have been a chance for the league to show maturity, to admit, hey, maybe officiating needs review. Maybe players raising concerns should be heard. Instead, it turned into a witch hunt against Colson, with fans branding her every insult they could come up with. And the irony? This entire mess just proves her point. She said the refs were corrupt, and the response was to drown her out instead of proving her wrong, that silence speaks louder than any whistle. The Fever locker room, though, seems unbothered. If anything, moments like this pull the team even closer. When the outside world turns against you, you either splinter apart or you bond stronger. And this Fever group looks bonded. Colson isn't being iced out. Her teammates are laughing with her, defending her, carrying on. And that's exactly what scares the league, because the more they try to isolate Indiana, the more united Indiana becomes. It's a dynamic sports has seen forever. The hated team either crumbles or thrives on the hate. And if the Fever use it as fuel, this circus could spectacularly backfire on the league. So let's call it what it is. Fans aren't mad at Sydney Colson for being Sydney Colson. They are mad because she reminded everyone the WNBA refs are not above criticism, and she did it wearing the one jersey they hate most. That's why they are calling for her head. That's why they are scrambling to paint her as something she's not. But guess what? Fever fans aren't buying it. They see exactly what's happening. And the louder the outrage grows, the clearer it is. Colson struck a nerve because she was,